6th annual Word Crawl. Let's hear it! 2019. For those who don't know me, and I think most of you do, I'm Bruce Cohen. I'm currently the board president for the Festival Awards, which is why we're here today. We're here today for Word Crawl as a fundraiser for the Festival Awards, which will be happening this year, November 1st and 2nd, up in Grand Coteau and Sunset. Festivalwords.org is where you will find out all the information. But this is our first event of a 6-venue, 12-hour literary marathon! Woo-hoo! Now, this event is sponsored by the Festival Awards Arts Collective. Thanks to our sponsor for this venue, the Acadian Center for the Arts, ACA rules. ACA has always been a big supporter of us in many ways, so we thank for their continued support. You can show your support by going downstairs to right below us to their little desk there and finding out all about the great cultural events that happen here at the ACA. Concerts, plays, galleries, openings, music, everything you can think of is right here, and especially with the fantastic theater they have downstairs. Okay, I want to give a shout out, and you can get a membership as well. You can get a membership to the ACA. So I want to give a shout out to our volunteers. When I call your name out, please raise your hand. We have, as our timer today, we have Miss Sue Scheifler. Yeah, all right. We also have Kwan. Is Kwan here? Raise your hand, Kwan. Is there a Kwan? No, not yet. We have Lori Henderson. Raise your hand, stand up, take a bow. We have Marion Rosser. Take a bow, Marion. And Paula Jordan. Where's Paula? Paula, woo, all right. Thank you all for coming. Thanks for the volunteers. This is a nonprofit. Festival Awards Arts Collective is a nonprofit. We couldn't do it without our volunteers, so thank you. So you know, as I said, this is a 12-hour event, my friends. We're going to be going from 12 to 12 midnight or 11:30-ish, whichever comes first. So if you don't have schedules in your hand, you can go to festivalwords.org. You can go to our merch table. We have maps and schedules there, right, ladies? Correct? We have all of our schedule information for Word Crawl and Festival Words is at our merch table. Please make your way over to the merch table at any time during the presentation today to get one of our brand new, I'm calling it aquamarine, but I think it's periwinkle color, our new colored t-shirts. Give it up for the new colored t-shirt! All right, so just if you don't know, and you probably do, but Festival Words strives to inspire creative expression and a higher level of literacy to residents of both St. Landry Parish and parishes throughout Acadiana. And we try to reach out to a diversified, undereducated population because, folks, literacy is paramount. To be able to communicate and clearly communicate so that people understand how you're trying to creatively express yourself. So what to expect if you're going to be with us for the long haul or part of the long haul or whatever, and go from here. The next venue, by the way, is going to be in the courtyard, right here across the corner behind Solo Violins and Poop Hearts, and that will all be in French. We always have, one of our venues is all French, because that's a very huge part of our culture here in Acadiana. So there'll be poetry, stories, songs, creative expression. Each person gets 10 minutes as a wordsmith as a fundraiser. And they get a certain amount of money for their 10 minutes to do their thing. There's also a sign-up list at the merch table if you want to become a volunteer next year for Word Crawl or for Festival Words. We always need volunteers. So please, if you want to be part of something very special, and the Festival Words is probably one of the most unique literary festivals in the state, please become a part of us. We'd love to have you join our family. I've already mentioned Sue. She's going to be our timer. So for those who are doing the actual coming up here and participating in the word crawl by expressing themselves, they will get 10 minutes. Sue is going to be the timer. So performers, when the timer holds up 2 fingers, and our timer is right up. Sue, can you stand up so people can see who you are? Thank you very much. There's our timer. Oh, we're good. And she will hold up 2 fingers. So make sure that you look at Sue when you're doing your reading. Okay, I have a chair here, please, especially for people to put their papers down if they wish, if they have papers. But she will put up 2, and then when there's 1 minute left, she will put up 1. And then when she holds her hand up like this, that's it. We say bye-bye, and we go on to the next one. So you can help. You can let performers know that you enjoy what you hear by. Let's everybody clap. Yeah, come on, everybody. Go, yeah, woo, 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 woo. Show your appreciation. And we have a donation bucket there at the merch table. So if you feel free to donate, please do. Anything helps, from a penny to whatever. A $100 bill would be nice. Throw donations in the bucket. And also, again, the volunteer sign-up list is there. So we all thank you for coming. We really appreciate the support. And again, our next venue will go here till about 1:30 or so. And then our next venue, starting at 2 o'clock, will be our French portion of the word crawl at the courtyard right behind Poop Arts and Solo Violins. And please go in there and support them as well. We thank you for coming. We really do. We really thank you for coming. And so from noon to 8 p.m., it's family friendly. And then from 8 p.m. till 11:30 midnight, it will be adult themed. So just to let you know for sure, and we'll start in 1 second. We go from here, we go to the behind Poop Arts, the atrium there, Lafayette Science Museum. So there will be from 2 to 3:30. Lafayette Science Museum will be from 4 to 5:30. And then 6 to 7:30 will be over at Rev Coffee Shop at the other end of Jefferson. Then the Omni Center from 8 to 9:30, and then we wrap up things at Cité from 10 to 11:30. So again, thank you for coming out. So let me introduce our first performer, our first wordsmith to kick off 2019 Word Crawl is Bessie Sinnett. Oh, one thing. Make sure that when you come up, you come around this way because we don't want you tripping over the wire. Bessie is a poet, a healer, a public speaker, and author of Cutting the Clouds, a Bayou's mystic poems, musings, and imaginings. Do you have any books with you today?
I have one.
Okay, to sell?
Yes.
Okay, there's one book to sell. We have it over there at the table. She'll have it over there at the table. Okay, Bessie, do your thing. Let's hear it for Bessie Sinnett.
Don't start your time. Wait till he vacates. That's him. And this is crazy. Come on, T-boy. That looks good. That looks good. What you think? Okay, I'm going to give you a choice. I can read poetry for my 10 minutes. But I tried my hand at fiction for the first time. It's a flash fiction piece. So I have time to do that and maybe 2 or 3 short poems. Fiction? All right. I love your adventuresome nature. shadows of the dead. He took Dad's old shovel from the tool shed, walked to the far corner of the backyard under the chokeberry tree, and began to dig a hole. I watched through the kitchen window while washing the supper dishes, then sat alone in Dad's chair. It smelled of Old Spice and wood shavings. The setting sun did not halt my brother's digging. Through another window, I saw him standing neck deep in the full moonlight of a clear summer night. Satisfied finally that the hole was deep enough, he climbed out and threw Dad's tools into the hole and filled it up again. He didn't need to wipe his eyes with his sleeve for me to know that he was crying, nor did he have to tell me why he had done it. I understood. Our father was a craftsman. The next morning, I stood with my brother and the funeral director at the gravesite. The sound of dirt hitting the wooden casket and the morning chirping of woodland birds was his elegy. Our church was the forest. Our prayers were the memories of the whisperings of an old wood plane and the scratching of a handsaw. My father wasn't an easy man to like, much less love, but we did, and we stayed beside him, never married, never left the house we were born in. Oh, there were suitors, and we caroused in town on occasion, but it never came to anything lasting. To say that we loved our way of life would be overstating it. We found value in it. We made money at it. Craftsmanship is hard work. It requires precision and exclusive dedication. Mornings begin the same. I wake first to make a strong pot of dark roast coffee in the old porcelain drip coffee pot that once belonged to my grandmother. Then Dad wakes and starts the breakfast. Next, Joey comes in just in time to sit down and eat, fully dressed for the day in denim coveralls and work boots. No one speaks. We each know our roles. If Dad needs anything from town, he has written it on a chalkboard by the back door that leads to the wood shop. If it's heavy lifting, Joey goes into town in the old diesel truck. If not, I go in my vintage Chevy Malibu. And when I say vintage, what I really mean is an old rundown piece of crap. Looking at the chalkboard now, I wonder if some chalk words will magically appear and I'll have my instructions for the day. I've done it every morning for the last 20 years. I don't think my brain has caught up with reality yet. I suppose that Joey will eventually start writing on the chalkboard, but he's still sleeping. It's 4 a.m. I should make the coffee, but I can't seem to lift myself out of Dad's chair. I've been here all night wondering what's next. Sounds from the kitchen distract me. Joey is making the coffee. I feel a tinge of guilt, but I don't move. He brings me a cup and sits down in Mom's chair. This shocks me, and I move forward to sit upright. No one has sat in Mom's chair since she died 18 years ago. It's both appalling and intriguing. Joey is speaking words in his usual gentle voice, but they're not making sense. I take a sip of coffee and try to listen more carefully. I hear him say, "Sis, do you understand?" I think, of course I don't, you idiot. But I keep staring into my coffee cup and nod. He knows me well. He doesn't raise his voice. His tone shifts and then says, "Martha Elizabeth, do you understand?" Only our mother ever called me by my full name, and I can't help but notice that he is using her exact tone of voice. "Martha Elizabeth, I'm leaving." "When will you be back?" "That's just it, I'm not." "You're not what?" "Sis." Thank God he's back to sis. I'm not just going to town. I'm leaving the state. I'm going to Arkansas. I need a new start. I need to be far away from here. What are you going to do? You buried Dad's tools. You won't be able to make furniture. I never wanted to make furniture. I wanted to take care of Dad and you. Mom made me promise. Dad's dead and you are smarter than all of us put together. There's money in the bank that I'll take half of. There's 46 acres in this house that Dad built. I've been to the lawyer and signed all the papers. You can have it all. So what am I supposed to do? I was hoping you would go to college, get a degree, use your brain for something other than taking care of two stinky men. When Joey was younger, he would put on Dad's Old Spice aftershave so heavy you could smell it all the way to New Orleans. Dad overheard me telling him that he stunk and said, "I guess you think I stink too." I blushed so red they both laughed. I joined in. It was such an unusual sound, all of us laughing, that we kept it up for quite some time until our sides ached and tears ran down our faces. It was such a blessed relief to feel something other than sadness. The phrase, "two stinky men," always made us smile. This time I wasn't smiling, and he knew how scared I was. It was all fine for him, starting a new life, a man living in a man's world, but I'm almost 30, and starting from scratch just doesn't seem possible. You can't think about it. You can think about it as long as you want to. There is enough cash for you to live in New Orleans and go to UNO like you wanted to when you graduated high school. It's not so far away, so you can come back here between semesters and holidays if it comforts you to be here in this house near your friends. I almost laughed out loud at that. My friends, who would that be? Mr. Badeau, the grocer, Mr. Benoit, the meat market, Mrs. Chaston, the postmaster. Every one of my classmates from high school has moved away or lives even further out in the boonies with husbands and 3 or 4 kids to brag about. I am noticing that I sound a little like Mrs. Chaston, who has been here all of her 67 years and complains about everything and everyone. A sudden realization that I could become her gives me pause. Joey has stopped talking. It's as though he can sense that he has started the wheels turning in my mind. He doesn't want to interrupt that process, so he waits patiently until I say, "How much money?" Minute? If I have 1 minute, I'm going to read my new poem. It's called Choose. A clear sky enhances my desire for rain, drought of the heart, desiccated by false loves. If only my brown eyes were blue, my teeth whiter, my lover more understanding. Between the wishing and the getting, I've already changed my mind. I awake with fragments of a dream, a lover devoid of longing. A knife pressed to my heart. Choose now, my love, death or wanting.
Let's give it up for Bessie Sinnett. I have to raise the mic. I'm not that tall. No. No. I'm tall in stature, but not in height. Okay. Just, continued merch table. Always want to point that out. Donation bucket, sign-up list. All the information you need is being handled by our 2 wonderful volunteers over there. So please make it over there at some point. So we, again, really appreciate you coming out. So our next our next wordsmith, Denise Rogers. Denise is the director of the UL Writing Center and an instructor in the English department whose poems have appeared in Louisiana Literature, the Alaska Quarterly Review, and others. And just, wanted to say this earlier, and Denise, you can make your way up. I just want to say this earlier is to properly how to use the microphone. Just speak directly into it, not over here, because you can't hear me, because it's right here. This is how you speak into the microphone. Not like this, but just a couple inches away, so we're heard. Bessie did a great job, by the way.
I don't think so.
Okay. Denise Rogers.
Yeah.
And she has a book on the table.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I wrote that in, so I wouldn't forget. Yeah, Denise has books at the merch table. What's the name of the book?
It's called The Scholar's Daughter.
The Scholar's Daughter. She has books available for $10 at the merch table, and she will sign them for you because she's here live. Yoo-hoo! Denise Rogers.
Thank you. The first poem I'm going to start with is one called A Loss, a poem in the voice of my mother. So my parents are from a French-speaking part of Missouri, all right, called Old Mines, Rich Woods. It's kind of southeastern Missouri. And so her parents, their first language was French too, so. Okay, and this is in memory of Edward Ricard, who was her grandfather. There was a time before I lost my French, I knew enough to sing with tunes my grandpa crooned. I remember being 4 and spoiled with many sweets. He toted me upon his back around the gallery. We'd end up in the kitchen at the corner pantry shelves where I would root around to my small heart's content. I like the pictures of the kids on cookie tins and apple cans. He said one day I'd have my own. I'd frown and shake my head. And he would laugh, and then we too would put them back again. One year I got the influenza bad. He wrapped me up and drove us down the lanes. My mom had lost 3 boys before, Roy and Floyd and Ronald, none of whom I ever knew. It seems all wrong he has no stone nor iron cross to mark the place he lies. My daddy pasted off for me when I was 15 from an old dogwood tree. But now that tree is gone, and all I know is he's in Richwood's churchyard there. He died in summer. I do remember that. My uncles made the coffin they put him in. They did their best. Poor folks laid them out at home still in those days. I wasn't scared until I understood and watched my mother covering our few mirrors one by one. She said, "We don't want his soul caught here at the house, do we?" When she found me on the chair, pulling all the pillowcases off, she spanked me hard and sent me out into the yard. I sat out on the gallery and cried all day, knowing he never would have minded if I'd wanted him to stay. Thank you. So a lot of my poetry deals with that part of the world. Not all of it, but some of it does. So this poem is called The Houses in the Holler. This is where my parents lived, in the holler, my mother. The houses on the ridge are sad ones. In winter, they hide beneath snow. Red and gray roofs peek out upon the rise, and all the tears inside drip down the slope. The houses in the holler are sly ones. In winter, they hide among the boughs. Gray clapboards list among the old pine trees, Any tears inside them dried long ago. It's hard to love a place remote as this, gripped by silence day by day. The man you're told to love does not love you, and those who did are dead and gone beside the church. My grandma left it when the golden leaves were twisting like her, barely holding on. When the storm comes, even stubborn ones let go. They drift earthwards, where they'd end up anyway. The houses in the holler are not strong ones. They will collapse in time upon the forest floor. I have a photo of my grandma's here. A cedar weaves its way out the back door. I like to write ekphrastic poems, or poems that are based on other artworks. And so this poem is to one of my ancient literary mentors, I suppose you'd call him, is Tu Fu, the poet Tu Fu. Okay, so this is called Tu Fu Dreams of Fishing with His Wife at Wu Gorge. Her pole lacks beside his. A basket of fish sits at her feet, waiting to be scaled. Carp have been biting well. It's damp and misty, but there's a flask of good plum wine, and in the knapsack, dumplings for two. Despite the cold and wet, the old girl wears a little bit of rouge. It's nice to have her nearby and travel, even if she's a dream who talks too much. Her chatter is sonorous to even the silver gill darting about like her fishy retinue. In the gloom, her catch, like her smile, is luminescent and fittering. He can't speak a word of loss. That old goat Li Po will tease him unmercifully. So, in the poem, he will write, when he wakes, it's Li Po he will toast to. Old Li Po, it's a rueful thing to be homesick, drunk and howling at the rabbit moon. How seldom and how slowly the practices of art soothe and delectate the poor and desolate human heart. I like to read a poem that I dedicate to my grandmother. I just like to read it every time I read. Anyway, it's called Aunt Lucy's Soul Transmigrates into a Cow. Aunt Lucy, who died last Saturday, has been buried and now finds herself a cow. Her soul has fled into the field by Colbaugh Cemetery, where she spends her morning munching grass and missing Wednesday's quilting bee. She craves her nightly toddies and her Falstaff beer, and it doesn't help when Miss Dot lows in sympathy. They amble toward the fence each day to eye their graves, noting how much Dot's old marker has deteriorated. Lucy's mound just hollows and grows darker with the rain. Lucy's cousin, known as Peaches, did stop by today to plant an olive-colored cardboard urn on Lucy's grave. Lucy lowed in pleasure just to see her on her knees. But Peaches drank her pop and chided, "Go on, bossy," to the pair. The plastic ferns and flowers cause our Lucy worry. Ms. Dorothy rolls her brown eyes toward the lick. Breezes kiss the blades of tender grass at Peaches' knees, and Lucy envies her standing in the midst of all that green. But Lucy will soon care less about the old days, how, when a girl, she used to give each cow a name. This is a poem that you get your inspiration from everywhere. Anyway, so this is a poem I actually heard about a CD on NPR one time, and it was called "You're Not Alone." And so what it was ambient sounds of living with people for people who were living alone. Okay. So anyway, the subtlest is track 14. The paper rustles, a lighter clicks, a body shifts back in a creaky chair. He clears his throat, expels a soft and raspy cough. You're not alone. You're with the no one who is not there. Track 11 runs the vacuum in the hall when you neglect to. Play this long track at inconvenient times, like when you're trying to nap or read a poem or magazine. It seems to know when you have given up on peace. It stops and starts the instant you rise from your seat. A favorite track of some is Putting Up the Shopping. Cabinets open, drawers are stubborn in their beds. Cans of soup scrape paint from all the slots they don't belong in. A package crackles, a gentle thud announces something's hit the floor. The fridge runs on and on. The door's left open much too long. Resist the urge to chide the no one who is not there. The sound of brushing teeth, of shaving, or of combing back a head of thinning hair stirs the empty air of tracks 3, 5, and 9. These are not perfect tracks. The toilet seat stays down just where you left it. Towels are folded on the rack. The shower curtain has been snapped back into place. Track 6 will put the kettle on. Track 4 will rifle through your mail. And 10 will doze off on the couch with measured snores. Just pretend it's him that's making noise, the him that made you feel alone. You might convince yourself in time that the him on the soundtrack is as much not there as the him that used to be.
All right, give it up for Denise. Okay, our next wonderful entertainer is Peg Ramir. If you've been involved with Festival Words or Word Crawl, you know Peg. She's one of us, part of our family. We're all family here. She wrote today that she wants you all to know that she's an architect. She's also a realtor. She's an aspiring potter, not Harry, but regular, and runs a senior center at her mom's house. And she also wants you to know that she's 5 feet 3.5 inches tall, but her stature places her about 20 feet. Peg! You need an adjustment?
Is that good? Okay. I think I'm going to do this a little opposite of what Bessie did. I'm going to do a poem, and then I'm going to read a story that I'm going to get cut off on. So, the poem is called Welcome, Little One. And I'm not going to look at you guys, because if I do, I can't see the words. So it's either you or the words. So, welcome, little one, to this world filled with love. Welcome, little one, to this family filled with love. We are happy that you have joined us. We have been waiting for you. Some of us could wait no longer and have moved on. Maybe you met them elsewhere before you came. They left some of their love behind when they left us. They left it in our hearts to share with you upon your arrival. They loved us, and they love you, little one. Please feel their joy and our joy in your arrival. Please grow large in this love in which you were planted. Feel its warmth. Feel its joy. Feel its nourishing tears and happiness and sorrow. How do you say that word? Sorrow. Let this love fill you with interest and desire for wisdom. Let it support you in adventure. Know that this love is always with you. Know that this love is always holding you and always supporting you. No matter where you are, no matter what you choose, no matter what you discover, we are always loving you. Grow strong, grow joyful. Live with your arms wide open and your head up high. Know that you are always welcome on our shoulders. So that... Okay, and this is a story. It's not this long, it's a lot of pictures. But because I'm going to get cut off, I'm going to read the last page first. So, when his crazy beauty got to the hospital and he was back on his feet, he told her, "I could have never imagined that the greatest adventure of my life would have happened when I'm an old, old man." And she replied softly, "And you are still so very, very young." So, and this is the beginning. And I'm not going to read that part again because I'm getting cut off for sure, right? There was once a young man who read lots of books, took lots of risks, had great faith in God, thought lots of thoughts, and loved lots of people. He was very, very young. One day, he and one of his friends had hopped the trolley without any money in their pockets to pay the fare. Now, the word had gotten around that he and his friends had often used this method of transportation to get home from their adventures. On this particular trolley hopping day, there were 2 police officers waiting for them at the end of the line. When the boys saw the coppers, they jumped out the trolley window and made a mad dash for their home. The officers chased them all the way home in the front door, past his grandmother, who was knitting peacefully in her rocking chair, and out again through the back door. The boys were caught and had to make restitution, but that never kept them from adventures. When he was old enough, the young man got his first job, and he started working at the lake, renting out canoes to tourists, fishermen, and young lovers on their first dates. One day, he and his buddy decided to have a date of their own. They each invited a friend, who happened to be girls, out on the lake in their canoes. To impress the girls, they loaded the back of the canoe so that the front end went Papa Wheelie style. They raced the girls around the lake and back again. Upon their return to the shore, their boss was waiting for them and promptly gave them their marching orders. Soon, the young man found a job as a gandy dancer. So a gandy dancer is the name for the people who are responsible for laying tracks on the railroad. And while swinging this gandy with the other men, he dreamt up the idea of doing something easier, maybe like joining the military. So with this new idea, he quit his job as a gandy dancer and headed out to ask for a job at the military offices. They told him they had already filled all the jobs. Devastated and without a job, he walked out of the office with his head down. But then he got the idea to turn around and he asked, "Do you have any ideas for any other jobs?" And they said, "You might check with flight training next door." Flight? No problem. Soon the young man found himself in flight school learning to fly fighter jets. What could be better? He and his buddies were taking off and landing on large ships, aircraft carriers. The carriers were designed to haul the jets far out to sea and provide a very short landing strip in the middle of the ocean for these jets. Then, as often happens, he was stopped dead in his tracks by a beautiful vision. He loved her madly, and she loved him madly, and they ran off together into the snow. Very soon after, babies were dropping from, well, you know, heaven, via the crazy beauty's earthly portal. These children growing up around them like so many blooming flowers. With all this, something changed. He now worked lots, smoked pipes, worried a bit, and lost much of his youth. Despite all the work, pipe smoking, and worrying, the adventurer managed to find ways to squeeze some adventures into the small spaces in his days. His beauty noticed that he was losing his youth, and she did her best to take away the worry by hauling it down into the laundry room in the basement, soaking it up with her tears and hiding it in the hamper. It worked for a while, but nevertheless, he was still losing youth in leaps and bounds. His hair turned white, while hers stood firmly brown. One year, something very sad happened. Oh, I don't want to read that part. It's not that interesting. Okay. When the adventurer was old, very old, he decided to get himself an airplane to have another adventure. And flying home with his new plane, he was dodging around storm clouds and switching back and forth between gas tanks. He was nearly home when his tanks were getting low, and he went to change the tanks one last time when the tank switch refused to budge. The adventurer fought hard against the switch, but it would not move, and finally he knew that he would have to land the plane before he completely ran out of gas. He searched the ground below for a spot to land, but found he was directly over a jungle of green trees. There was no place to land. He lowered the plane to get a better look, and just about the time he was about to resign himself to a crash, he saw a small golden spot in the sea of green trees. It was a little farm of wheat, just enough to land a small plane. He didn't waste a second and dove down towards the new landing strip, brought the plane into the wheat field to make a perfect last-ditch effort landing in the wheat field surrounded by jungle. As the plane was still whipping through the wheat after the touchdown, he let out a great shout of joy over the fantastic landing, but the joy was short-lived. The plane had begun to slow down when the center wheel hit a large pothole and the plane flipped head over heels to finish the taxiing upside down. With the flip, he had cracked his head, and when the plane finally stopped moving, he found he was bleeding profusely from the large gash in his head. He got himself loose from his seatbelt, grabbed his jacket to compress the gash, and rolled himself out of the plane before it had a chance to blow up into flames. He survived the crash, which was no surprise to him, as this was the 5th plane he had crashed and walked away from. See, I had to cross out a bunch of stuff, so I lost my place now. He had to find his way out of the jungle on foot in hopes of getting anywhere before dark. He walked until the sun was getting low on the horizon and the path disappeared, and soon he was pushing his way through the palmetto field, and the mud was thick on his shoes. His steps were slow and deliberate, and the mud was holding him down. With one step, a shoe was pulled off and disappeared into the mud. Finally, he thought he had saw what might be headlights, and with great joy, he found he was only about 20 feet from a roadway. At that point, he saw a fence covered with barbed wire, and he thought he would die here, but he was worried about his beauty, and so he became determined to get to the road. He pulled himself up and lifted the barbed wire just enough to create a slight opening and heaved himself through the fence. All he could do now was raise his hand in hopes that a car would stop. When one did, they said, "Are you all right?" And he said, "No, I'm not all right." He was taken to the hospital and quickly whipped back into shape. Oops, I guess I have to read this part again now. When the crazy beauty got to the hospital, he was back on his feet, and he told her, "I couldn't have imagined that the biggest adventure of my life would have happened when I was an old man." And she softly replied, "And you're still so very, very young." That's it.
Once again, let's hear it for Peg. Peg is an integral part of the Festival of Words and Word Crawl family. Let's give it up for Peg. Oh, this next performer, oh my gosh. This next performer, some of you don't know that for the past 9 years, I have been the talented theater teacher in Vermilion Parish. And I have an incredible array of students. And one of them is here today to read poetry that she wrote. And she is a gem. And she has my heart. So Shia Abier, would you like to come up? Shia is in 2nd grade. Okay, Shia, is this good for you right here? Okay. Shia Abier, give it up.
Magic. Magic comes from the stars. Magic can contain life. It can change the world. Have you seen it? I have. Magic is in you and me. We can change the world. Home. Attention! We are the world. Just as the ground we stand upon is home. So if you wouldn't wash your face with garbage, don't pour it over Earth's face. Heart blossoms. Mom said you were in the room when I was born. I guess that's when the bond began. You planted a seed in my heart, and it grows each time I see you. Your face. Hear your voice. or feel the safety in your hugs. It continues to grow from my heart, binding around yours. So we will forever be connected by heart blossoms. Scratch that. My teacher asked me what I want to be when I grow up. I was stuck between a paleontologist and a cat. I mean, a paleontologist digs like a dog. Scratch that. I want to be a cat. Cats don't dig. They do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want. As a cat, I could climb and jump with style. And I could finally figure out the deal with that catnip stuff. I mean, somewhere between my 16 hours worth of catnaps. The runt. I named him Cupid because he stole my heart of all the kittens. He was the tiniest, but he grew with love. This one's my favorite. On freeing the idea. Something is stuck in my head, begging to get out. It's banging and scratching, but it can't open the door. Where's the key so I could let it free? Could this pin lock pick the lock? Maybe this pin could make a string of words to shimmy through the keyhole and pull this thing to the paper in front of me. There's an idea. The one who makes smiles. Don't ask me what I want to be. I will have years to figure that out. Don't ask me who I want to. Do ask me who I want to be, because that I know, and that you can see. When I mold smiles on the faces around me with words, hugs, kindness, and creativity. This one I wrote before the runt was born. My cats. My cats are different. Luna is like the moon with eyes that shine in the dark. Navi is like the sun, yellow and warm. Both of them light up my life. Mom. I love my mom because she puts me to sleep with cuddles. I love my mom because she wakes me up with kisses. I love my mom because she fills my day with laughter and fun. So the sunbeams. We all should love each other. So don't be mean. Whatever happens, we will always be united. So appreciate what you have. So the sunbeams. Okay. I know someone else.
Wait. Come here. Take a bow. Shia Bear. This is our future right here. This is our future right here. And because Shai is our future, I think we are in excellent hands. What do you say? I tell you, she's got my heart. And I'm sure she pulled at all your heartstrings today. Fantastic. Thank you, Shia. Shia is currently in Abby Player's version of Matilda. She came from rehearsal to do this, and now she's going back to rehearsal. So as a talented theater teacher, it's incredible to be around children like that. Just makes me young. Next up, Martha Garner. Yes, well, Martha is currently the executive director on the Festival Awards board. She has been with Festival Awards and Word Crawl for years. She's got my heart as well. Martha is a recently retired early childhood teacher. She now aspires to be a naturalist. Martha Garner. Need an adjustment? Yeah, you too.
A little bit. I'm taller than you.
Yes, you are.
And I want to speak to whoever made the schedule about making me follow Shia. Yes. Bird tree. The wind lifts its branches, and it slowly dispenses a cardinal pair, red and gray, a chickadee wearing a black cap, a flock of sparrows chattering as they fly, a bossy blue jay, a clown car of birds. Morning. A mockingbird runs through his repertoire. Bamboo chimes clack. The wind ruffles leaves and tosses branches, setting in motion a loop of vine, a tree swing that beckons me. The breeze carries with it the sound of a woman sobbing, raggedly, endlessly. Another woman beseeching her over and over, "What is wrong?" You said a mouthful, Elizabeth Bishop. The art of losing masters me as I grow older. The keys, my glasses, inevitably on top of my head. My white car in a sea of white cars, me whirling helplessly, ineffectually searching. Countless bookmarks disappearing from countless books, followed by frantic rereading of random pages trying to find my footing. Like you, I've left behind so many houses, so many friends, a couple of husbands, but one victory, a somewhat Pyrrhic one. Every song from my teenage years is etched indelibly on my brain. September, Louisiana. Sparrows scatter in the grass like fallen leaves, brown and yellow leaves, premature missives from fall, promissory notes that read, "Not yet." Sparrows startle, rise as one. How quickly they meld with the shadows and branches as the misleading leaves continue to fall. Okay, this one is called Arrested Development. It actually comes from my studies as a naturalist. Cicada, 17 years of living underground, sucking roots for tree sap, arduously digging out, crawling up the trunk, molting, singing for a mate to start the cycle again. Cicada, I also lived underground for too long, leaving home at 17, married for 17 years. Cicada, I have heard that the number 17 is associated with insight, self-discipline, strength, compassion, spiritual consciousness, and wisdom. Now I stand at half a century plus 17 years, awaiting the molt that will bring me completeness. Space-time and my grandmother's house, and I visited my grandmother's house this summer, and I had a lot of thoughts about the past and the present. In this house live all the incarnations of me, a ringleted infant, a child playing with plastic animals and cowboys and Indians, sprawled on the Turkish rug with my sister. A teen, awkward and gangly, seeking a role model in my grandmother who loved all things Asian and cooked recipes from Julia Child. Then suffering the loss of my grandfather, my grandmother, my dad. Always competing with my sisters for maternal love and approval. Then the trauma of my mother's bad choices that left her crippled and in a nursing home at the end. So she lives there too, in all her incarnations from young bride to elderly invalid. It's a crowded house. We rattle around together as we did in life, bumping against one another in space-time, but never quite connecting. Okay, this one is called Curbside. Piled roadside, a tangle of plastic hangers, a torn white plastic sofa, an artificial Christmas tree. Junk, all of it. I wonder, is a family moving out or did someone die? Then I think, when I die in 20 years, 40 years, tomorrow, I won't leave such clutter behind, but I will. Even buried like Egyptian royalty with the things I love, my dogs, my books, my earrings, my journals, and maybe a favorite person or two, I would still leave a mighty mess, the remnants of my life, waiting curbside for the junk man. My last poem is called The Awful Truth. Every summer, they graced us with their magical presence in the flower-bedecked cottage next door to my grandparents. There was an innocence about them, a quality of being not quite of this world. She was a writer of gently humorous essays collected under titles like Life's Minor Collisions and The Pleasure of Your Company. He, an eminent professor and renowned engineer, but to us they were simply Aunt Frances and Uncle Mayo. High priestess of the cookie jar, Aunt Frances served us lemonade in thin china teacups balanced precariously on saucers, and butter cookies arranged in a fan shape on a tray. Uncle Mayo, her acolyte, always thanked her graciously. They treated one another with courtliness and wry humor. Wondering what Uncle Mayo's field was, my search brings up a phrase that detonates in my brain. Worked as a consultant on the Manhattan Project. Horrified, I click on the link, and there he is, mingling with Einstein, Fermi, and Oppenheimer, the scientists who first split the atom and made nuclear warfare a reality. I had always known him as a scholar, horn-rimmed glasses perched above his brushy mustache, toiling in a dusty, book-lined room in his berth at the university, with scientific honors falling on him like rain. Now, perhaps a more apt comparison would be raining like nuclear fallout. How did the Tea Parties, the gentle wit and genteel refinement, square with fiery death in the form of Little Boy? 30% of Hiroshima's people were killed immediately. Some vaporized where they sat or stood. Another 30% were burned, blinded, injured, slowly dying. 3 days later, Fat Men destroyed 44% of Nagasaki. 95,000 people were killed or injured. This was a glimpse of the apocalypse. Inside Mayo and Frances's flower-decked cottage, we were transported, transformed into fairy tale children. The golden nimbus that enclosed them surrounded us as well. We would have gladly stayed bewitched forever. But that spell has ended for me. Every fairy tale has its villain. The charming, courtly man of my childhood was a collaborator who helped unleash one of the most terrifying forces known to man, a weapon that exploded over and over in my childhood nightmares, and to this day causes me an inward lurch of stark terror.
Give it up for our own Martha. All right, moving on, Elaine Taylor. Elaine Riley Taylor lives on 4 acres near the Atchafalaya Basin, spends her days immersed in life with her husband, Jim, and her small dog, Pookie Audouin. A retired professor, she enjoys time spent in nature, playing music with friends, and traveling over ideas with other people. There are moments when she finds that writing her heart across an open page can be the most satisfying experience of all. Elaine Taylor. Is this right good?
A little lower. Since you're providing a service here, I'll avail myself of it. Thank you.
Go. How are we doing with the timing? We're doing good? Okay.
Hey, y'all. Nice to see you here. Most of these poems were written with a group of women I meet with on Wednesday mornings, and I think most all of them came out of that setting. I made myself up. I made myself up, she said, and I thought, don't we all make ourselves up, for better or worse, till we're performing from a script we believe to be our own, even though it's based upon the whisperings of others? Mothers and grandmothers, sisters and cousins, and those mean girls in the driveway who just have to tell you all you are not. We believe them for long enough that it all becomes ingrained in our psyches, works upon our DNA. Beliefs insinuate themselves across our bodies and teach us to live at the power of others until we don't. Until the day comes, on the heels of experience upon experience that defies the voices of others, reveals to us our power, the presence of our magic, the ability we have to take the pen in hand and rewrite the story of who we are. Chasing the Muse. The writing muse is a guest who visits me at times, coming on clouds of mist, buoyant without need of legs to stand, a kaleidoscope of images, every hue, every shade imaginable, and languid as brown water moving between mud banks and beyond. But my brain resists the urge to write this morning. Maybe it's the frenetic pace that brought me here. No time for deep breaths and qigong movement. Not a last morning with Elizabeth before she sets upon her journey back to Copenhagen. We spent last evening crowded into a screen porch circle, accordion and fiddle sounding old French tunes into the Brobridge night air, restless sleep with dreams of rising water, being caught between two trains going in opposite directions, knowing I must swim fast to escape both. Gray sky morning, finding my way into town and practical matters of to-do lists, showers and shower bars and haircuts, making it in time to my circle of magic women who share the timeless space for writing. But writing doesn't come this day, no words, only the sense of magic I feel at the communion of spirit around this table, and gratitude that there's a place where I may move from the real world into one of myths, even as it is as yet out of reach. My husband was diagnosed with ALS in 2013, and so we spend a lot of quality time traveling over ideas and just enjoying the day by day, and that's the title of this poem. My heart breathes in a knowing that I must say this poem is based on a poem by Constantine Cavafy called Ithaca. And Ithaca is a metaphor for, it could be construed as a sacred place. My heart breathes in a knowing that I am living in Ithaca every moment, every day. The poet observes, wise you have become of such experience. And as a fine emotion touches your spirit and your body, you well with a joy felt from each moment lived within the now. So many summer mornings, so many ports seemed for the first time, a concert of mind and heart and spirit lived in fullness. And I wonder how it feels to Jim, who gives steady testimony to such a color-filled rendering of life, even while his body is increasingly diminished, even while his voice is steadily lost to weakening muscles that struggle to speak to a mind still as sharp and as strong as it ever was, testifying all the while to the happiness that life affords him, spending his days in a chair that replaces the mobility his legs once provided. Still, his sedentary body cannot deny the brilliance of song that sounds from his heart. From where comes the deep pulse, the resounding strength, the stamina that causes those eyes to shine, an awareness that builds from the inside out? I can only stand by and watch as he changes day by day. The sobering and also the magnificent, they both arrive at once, colored as they are by all the shades between. I can only bear witness to this strange and holy land that is our Ithaca, our time for sweet understanding of the miracle breathing us day by day. This was inspired by a quote from Henry Nouwen, "In this life, all symphonies remain unfinished." Longings of the heart live beneath our everyday, as if some inner call fuels our actions and directs us on our path. True, we're unaware even as we live it. Still, it shapes our every step as surely as a magnet pulls its polar partner. What is the longing that pushes us forward, endlessly reaching but never quite attaining? Does it come from within? Is it chemistry fueling the firing of neurons, hormonal fluctuations, tinkling keys, opening one door and closing another? Is there some primal push that's written on the DNA, spiraling structures giving voice in the language of helixes, nuanced patterns of promise and regret? Oh, to wish for some long-held desire, some outcome defining who one is, only to realize one day that love won't ever be requited, not in the way one had imagined, that the beauteous images of abundant living will never quite match the reality, the picture of reality that's mirrored in the day-to-day. But as surely as the moon draws down the tide in its pull away from shore, a glistening bounty will remain, arising as by magic from the foamy wake. Sinuous sea vine, starfish, and mollusk, raw against the elements, complex in its diversity, no tether of expectation. And one comes to know that in the stark reality, there is beauty that we didn't quite expect, an unfinished symphony lying there to glisten for a moment or a lifetime in the noonday sun. The instant when love begins. A little wren is nesting in the fern that drapes from a large basket suspended from the roofline just beyond the window. Nestled between emerald fronds, beak pulling at feathers from base to tip, preening and fluffing and smoothing just right, she stretches each tiny leg outward, balanced upon the other, then settles back down into her nest, resuming the steady frozen stance, a spreading warmth to cover a single fragile egg? Is it love that compels this mother to widen herself across the tiny being yet to be, so dependent on the heat she offers with her steady, silent regard of protection? Does she think about this process? Wonder to herself how long before the growing form will come into its fullness, push its tiny beak against the circling shell just once, then again and again, until a crack ensues with force of beak to shell, against and through it spills its way out into the light, into the air, into the gaze of she who is and has been there, but who is now somehow so much more, just for this time of nesting and laying and setting and guarding and waiting and warming and watching, now knowing the instant when love begins.
Let's hear it for Elaine. Thank you so much, Elaine. Moving on, we have Carrie Hamburg, right? Carrie grew up in Lafayette. And although he's left several times, he keeps coming back. He has worked as a visual artist and teacher of art and technology. He currently works at UL Lafayette for distance learning and spends way too much time online, as most of us do. And I just want to point out that Gear Up AWP has shown up, and they will be presenting at the Science Museum, so make sure you check them out. Thank you. So there's seats up front if you all want to take some seats up front as well. So right now, let's hear it for Carrie.
Y'all are all such tough acts to follow. Next year, I'm going first. And I feel honored and a bit awkward to be speaking with you today at this Festival of Words, like an imposter of sorts. You see, words are not my native language. There was a time when I had no words at all, just raw being, animal potential, feral soul and emotion. That is who I was and still am, deep down beyond the reach of words. That was so long ago I do not remember much, and since I cannot put it into words, as you say, what does it matter? What does that mean, to put something into words? As if words were boxes on cargo ships, sailing on waves of sound, or riding upon reams of paper, or streaming digital oceans now. Like sacred vessels, a chalice, an offering from me to you, containing the essentials of my being, would you dare to hope that such as that would arrive intact? A festival of words. Yes, we should celebrate that which communicates and seeks to connect who and what we are. But truly words fail me often. They stall, they crawl, congeal, coagulate, or worse. Poor translations only of the primal magma swirls of who I really am, really am, who you are. You see, words are not my native language, nor yours. We are forged of light and blood and pulsating truth, of being and flowing, not thinking, contemplating, arguing, translating, struggling for words to contain ourselves, to create ourselves. In the image of our containers, those boxes, those words, we love them so and despise them. I hope you'll understand and forgive. You see, words are not my native language. This one is called The Space Between Us Now. I wrote a space for silence here. See, there it was. That hole in the page that was not a sound, was not words, was not even a breath to hold. What was that passed between us? Here comes another one. There is no mark to chart that out, no musical measure or guide to know when it should end. I really don't know. No rules to help me through the moment to know what is the right timing. Here, I could show you my notes. Here, meaningful silence. Now. Until it is time to continue. But what good would that do? You would not understand, could not understand. The silence is the gap between my words, between my thoughts, outside of all my best intentions. That discomfort, awkward, tingle, pain, what was that about? How can silence provoke so, wound, destroy? Wait, see, I don't know when it will be okay to speak again, to start, to try. Is it all right now? Is this a good time for you? Can we have that talk at last and say what always goes unsaid? It's not the silence of our anger, both withholding, stubborn, hard, rocks for eyes, where love ekes out a haggard life between the cracks, entwined, entangled, enmeshed. No space between us there and then, since we are so much alike. Wait, it's not the wordless pantomime we slip into when we make believe that I am invisible and you are indifferent to the hole in my heart. That space is the silent sound of my desperate cry. See me and hear for once that I am part of you. You cannot silence or discard. Rather, if I am gone, the space I leave will be nothing. That sound you no longer hear will not be silence, but a ringing bell, accusing, reminding, punishing you, cleaving into your callous heart like some phantom limb that serves no purpose, but a scratchless itch of something no longer touchable, outside of your reach. It's not the silent span deep in the night between your sleeping snores, that thought that gripped me all the while, that terror, panic, pain. Was that your last breath? Or just a gap between? That space, how long has it been now? It's not the silence of your grave now. That is just the hole in my life shaped like your memory. No, today is not that kind of silence. The space I hold for you now is awake, aware, alive. Let this silence now have a flavor, a life, all its own, poised, posed, paused, just the right size to fit where it belongs. Where we all belong, here, all of us together, to honor just for this moment, like silver thread wound tight around a crystal bell, enclosing, cherishing, connecting now what passed before, to where we are and who we were, to now, to us, as we are all together, silent still, but speaking once more in a language we now all understand. Do I have time? Oh, peace. I thought it was peace. I guess, as things often do, that was a meditation on what is not words, and became thoughts on my dad who passed away, which y'all probably understood that. This is my favorite Shel Silverstein, and I thought I had lost it because I heard it when I was little, and I never could find out what it was or who wrote it. And I just randomly bought a book and I found it. So this is my favorite poem. Fancy Dive. The fanciest dive that ever was dove was done by Melissa of Coconut Grove. She bounced on the board and flew into the air with a twist of her head and a twirl of her hair. She did 34 jackknives, backflipped and spun, quadrupled, gainered, and reached for the sun, and then somersaulted 9 times and a quarter, and looked down and saw that the pool had no water. And I don't draw a strong line between writing and art, and I do multimedia, so things blur. So this is one that I did. It's called Sea Glass. Those jagged shards of memory now, by passing years and tossing turned, like sea glass polished by the waves to precious jewels of lessons learned. Thank you. Thank you.
Give it up for Carrie Hamburg. Thank you, Carrie. Great stuff. Shel Silverstein is a favorite of mine as well. Next up, Maria Cratcher. Maria is a retired public school speech therapist. She has been married for 42 years, has 2 children, 5 grandchildren. She enjoys swimming, riding her bike, and spending creative time with her grandchildren. Maria Cratcher.
This morning, on my way here, I didn't know how I was going to introduce my short collection of poetry. And I was telling a few friends this morning about this. There was a big Pepsi truck that drove by in front of me at the red light, and it said, "Life tastes better in the South." So I think that life is better with all of the ups and downs that we experience. And I hope my collection of poems speaks to you about that, the joy and the suffering in our life. This first one is about new beginnings, and it's called The Mountain of Light. Meeting life at the mountain of the east, memories of a working past, living life, speeding through time, a chance to begin again. The orange light reflecting in the mind, an invocation of a new day, hope for renewal and continuation of all that was good and satisfying, a spiritual redemption to offer a self committed, climbing Kilimanjaro. Bruce mentioned that I had 5 grandchildren, and my youngest is, well, they're all talented, but I think she's quite precocious and exceptional. And so this poem was inspired by her, and it's called Shadow on the Wall. Look, I'm holding the earth in my hands, the child observes. Can one crave power at such an early age? Does one really understand the responsibility? Maybe it is wisdom unspoken to live in the moment with an understanding of what is to come. Cleaning up the mess that has polluted our lives, a caretaker lineage from the ancient genetic code. Having a feeling deep in the soul of protecting the wild, leaving a minimal footprint, enjoying natural beauty, and respecting all creation. Innately, she does see that it is much more than a ball that is held outstretched in the blue sunset sky. Three years ago, almost to the day, I was involved in a serious car accident. And following accidents, sometimes we go through periods of depression and recovery and healing. So this is a self-reflective poem, and it's called Cocoon Girl, adult version. Wrapping the blanket tightly around my broken body, my arms are tucked in, closing out distractions that split my mind into shards of broken promises. An illusion created of all that was sweet and safe. Living through the princess years, being used up one part at a time. Finding out secrets, telling lies that no one really believes, spiraling downward into mind games that people play, and spending years in wavering distress, taking tiny steps toward contentment and envisioning rebirth and cocooning oneself from despair. This next poem I wrote in dedication to Macy and Jillian, the 2 young women who died at the shooting at the cinema here in Lafayette. So I wrote this a few days after that incident, and it's called Violet Remembrance. Crispy morning, bright blue skies, November rising. Violet shades, violence screaming in our ears, wishing for an end and wanting for rose-tinted glasses, hoping for the best of life, to be content, to be filled with joy. But lives are interrupted. Picking a bouquet of violets to honor your life, cut sharply at the time of excellence. Brisk wind, a tear falls, the world changes. The mind no longer sane. Violet shades, violence screaming across our land. November rising. On a lighter note, I've written a few poems over the past, particularly influenced by living here in Louisiana. And this is about experiences in the Big Easy. And it's called Crescent City. The Queen palms blowing in the Pontchartrain breeze, the roar of the jets overhead, gives me a feel of past times in the Big Easy. New Orleans blend roasting, sweet smell of powdered beignets, crisp white shirts starched, muscular from years of carrying heavy trays. The colorful residents, a sampling of mankind, jazz bars, shucked oysters, and hurricanes. Soft blue silk gown, me and you, arm in arm, hoping that the day will never end. The friends and neighbors in the quarter, the tourists that don't really belong, but we do. We see. We know that our time is short, living for today and nothing more. One day my husband told me that this was his favorite poem, and it's about living out on the prairie, and it's called Mackerel Sky. Big mackerel sky spreading from west to east, clear and bright, sky blue, cotton balls, marshmallow cream, delicious. White light sun, contrail free, intense and open, spectacular. Standing stillness frees the heart, clears the mind, feeling energized with a spirit of eternity. I wrote this next poem in remembrance of my great-grandparents who immigrated here from Germany. And it's called The Immigrant Heart. Close to the tracks, the center of town, the train whistle sounds the clackety-clack of the wheels, and the crisp north wind blows. Close to the tracks, the center of town, where the lifeblood flows, the vein connecting the Gulf to the Pacific. Images blur from another time and place, a new land, a determined people, developing the heart of America. Stepping on the platform into life on the prairie, hardships will not matter. Struggling will be an opportunity, and breathing is freedom. By the way, side note, my great-grandfather was a draft dodger, so he left under an assumed name. The last one is called A New Day, and because it's the 50th anniversary of the release of Abbey Road by the Beatles, this is the only poem that I've ever written about the Beatles, so I thought it would be a good way to end. And it's called A New Day. Here comes the sun, it's all right. Thank you, George. You wrote the words that inspire, a feel of joy and hope, each day bringing new promise to let go and live again. Here comes the sun, the smiles returning to our faces. You knew the trouble. You understood the plight of man. Finding happiness is what gives our life meaning. Here comes the sun, little darling. It's been years. You called us by name. Love was your mantra, the love of all mankind, to smile, to inspire, to love today. Thank you.
Give it up for Maria. And all the poets and wordsmiths that have graced our wonderful space here before her. Up next is a woman who is part of the Festival Awards Board family. So let's give it up. Jacqueline Lewis Langston, who embodies a musical artistry of soulfully yours music as a musician-singer, loves the syncopated sounds of gospel and jazz. She is a native of the Gulf, South Louisiana, and is active in the literary community. She music and public education. Although music is her forte, she is a connoisseur and a connector of words and thoughts and ideas. This wordsmith knows that a word can be spoken, can frame a world, heal a heart, my heart, or capture an adventure of a lifetime. Miss Langston continues to do meaningful and charitable work, performing music and plays with various organizations. Give it up for Jacqueline Lewis Langston! Woo!
Let's give it up for music and festival words. The word call. Today, actually, I am just a simple woman born in here and right there in Morgan City. And I love education. I love children. I love all those wonderful things that make up our Gulf South. I'm going to speak in the mic. Where's Bruce? Well, this year, the Association Study of the African American Life and History, this year our theme was the movement. It was called Black Migrations. And such migrations resulted from more diverse, stratified, interracial, intraracial urban population, because we always changing. We are always changing. Even in this moment, we are embracing change. So today, have a simple message. And my message is about metaphors of migration. Simply says this: metaphors. It's a literary device. A figure of speech, if you please. Earlier, I could hear the train. I could hear the locomotive. I could hear the movement of the Underground Railroad. Was it really a train? It was undetected by sound. Harriet! Oh, Harriet. Harriet, the conductor. The girl, Moses. And they told me when I was a little girl. Moses, they told me the story when they sang in Sunday school. Go down, Moses, way in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. That conductor with a bounty on her head. She had a bounty on her head 'cause she'd rather die. She would rather die free than to die with the bound and the dead. Oh, black migrations, they've called it this year of the forced and unforced movement of blood, sweat, tears. Harriet, she said it well. We recall to mind. Oh, yes. Everybody got freedom. Everybody got freedom. No single living soul was left behind. Oh, my Lord, 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 I hear it. Oh, my Lord, 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 Lord. I hear the movement. Migration. The movement, the displacement, the relocation, adaptation, the migration, the movement. We had to have a focus, destination. And hear me well. We remember the first documented arrival in the year of our Lord, 1619. And little did we know we would all of us, the movement would cross Selma with Dr. King. Listen to the movement, the migration, the rhythm, the syncopated rhythm of the song. Listen, it said, one day when the glory come, it will be ours. It will be ours. One day when the glory come, it will be ours. Pray tell, what's that glory? What's that glory? The glory, listen, you'll remember this, is when we all will sit down at the brotherhood's table. That's the glory. When the shifting times and the tides and the breakers, where we ain't gonna study war no more. Oh no, we are going to lay down our burdens down by the river side, the movement, the water, the rhythm. Yes. Why? The migration. He has brought our destinies in sync. Unless today we walk out of here buffering, and we buffer and we never change, because all of us are moving forward. The movement is a rhythm to us. Hear these words. Freedom is like all of us. Freedom is like religion to us. Justice is just a position in us. And the song goes on to say, it says, King, Dr. King pointed us to the mountaintop, and we ran, movement, we ran up. We ran up. Oh, my Lord, 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 Lord. Migration. The movement. Oh, yes, the movement. The 14th, 15th Amendment. And it took a crystal stair. It took a caged bird and the rhythm, the rhyme, the blues, the World War I. My great uncle fought in World War II. Yes, the rhythm, the rhythm. Industrialization, plenty, and a great move to north seem true. Jazz and gospel and prayer and a step and a stand holding signs. I believe I saw it on a documentary. It said, I am a man. A renaissance in Harlem. The strange fruit on a tree. Civil rights. Voting rights, girls. 1920 for you. And 1964 for me. And the Board of Education strikes down segregation, unconstitutional. You see, and again the Civil Rights Act is finally signed, prohibiting discrimination. That's key. That's key. And so I'll leave you with a few words. The late Dr. Maya Angelou, with word adorning, declaring in this new century, she declared that we, this generation, us in this room, yes, we on the pulse of a new morning. And so I said, the metaphor, the movement, it continues. And I want you to say, can you with me? One more time. Keep moving. Keep moving. Thank you.
Jacqueline Langston. Lewis Langston. Jacqueline Lewis Langston. Give it up. All right, we have one final wordsmith to grace us with their words. We have Sandra Saar. Sandra will read poems from her first place award-winning entry at this year's Jambalaya Writers Conference. Her novel, The Road to Indigo, is currently under consideration by a publisher. Yeah, all right, Sandra. Sandy holds an MFA in creative writing. She has also worked as a college communications writer, editor, strategist, served as executive director at Test Center for the Arts, and founded the Story Catchers program for Franciscan Hospice in Washington. Is that Washington, Louisiana, or Washington State? State. Okay, give it up for Sandra. And just I want to let you know, after Sandra does this thing, we're going right over to the atrium for our French portion of Word Crawl. So make it over there directly after Sandra is finished. Don't forget our merch table. And you all, thank you all for coming out. Sandra.
Thank you, everybody. And I just have to say, I am so honored to share this space with all of you brilliant poets and friends in this room. Some of you know that I had an extremely challenging summer, and I am here, and I am so happy to be here. Thank you. I have a new poem for you. It appears in this beautiful magazine motif. And then the other poems were part of that collection that Bruce mentioned earlier, and it won me $50. The first money I've ever gotten for a poem, or for a collection of poems at all. So the first poem is entitled, What Carries Us. Does this sound okay? I've walked down aisles to altars wrapped in white more than once, crept along edges of alleyways lit by slivers of moons. I've stood on stages crowned by throngs of applause, survived the indifference of silence. Mostly it was shoes that spirited me through earthly terrain, bearing me up over heel-sinking loam. There was a time when shoes couldn't bear the weight of souls. Still, I kept those shoes, in case an occasion arose for the ice blue Italian satin peep toes, the pink Chuck Taylors,
the white crepe stilettos and their teeny tiny white kid leather ankle straps that tied in a bow, marble-sized rhinestones and crusted balls hanging down from each tie, the yeah, you right, sixpence tote rose-bowed, kitten-heeled slingbacks, the boring white Payless pumps, the champagne strappy sandals, the cork-wedged yet silver sequin platforms, the unadorned flats so as not to overshadow another. All made it to an altar of one sort or another, even the Katrina pair that washed away. Mama said, always look to the shoes. Any fool can fake style, but shoes say the true story. Now I know a pair of grass-stained bare soles can carry you to your altar. This next poem is entitled Siren. She was one of the best damn tassel dancers in New Orleans. What some cat called a sleazy heat seeker, a holy hell raiser, pacing the stage all glittery and shimmering, a regular hardcore harlot, so says her ne'er-do-well daddy, the backdoor cash taker. Now she chases flames, not to stoke, but to extinguish. A truck, not tassels, are the tool of her trade. No one can drive like her. Red blaze of speed, light flash, and siren wail. She owns the driver's seat. She watches both ways, horn blaring, warning, get out of my way. Town men, they're still chasing that fire truck. Some nights, in silence, she hears one man's old code knock on her door. He meets her in dreams. Those nights, she awakens with a trace of a smile and lights a lucky strike. And this one was written as a companion piece, and it's called Blue Note. Tuba man taps his brass, split in half notes tucked in pockets, a sweat rag, time slides through years on his river walk where he runs mind scales in sharps and flats toward home. He counts goodbye beats, feels the pulse of streets, old tunes made new by feet that pound out half note, whole heart, juice of life. He knows her note by heart, cursive, bled blue, mood, indigo. Tuba man pauses and reassembles the parts. He blows a holy breath through the bellows and hollows so it flows through the coils and pistons and valves, sending up a let the good times roll blare so she can hear the color of wholeness. And these are a pair of poems. Possession. For Augustus, a slave owned by Martha at Rosedown Plantation. Beneath a shadow arc an oak tree would make is where I started, and where we'd meet when you no longer owned me and I could leave. I fingered the blade of the budding knife you bought me and charted the stands of japonicas I grafted for your pleasure garden, a slave made to labor. You could not keep me from inhaling this living garden of delights made by my hands for others' senses. Azaleas are what I crave, still after digging 80 holes that day to plant saplings you bartered for baled cotton with that man downriver. I arranged their roots and gave them my songs. I drew from the earth fruit trees and food to fill your larder. And now you come down the allée wanting me to catch a hog and shave its hair to plant with Irish potatoes under the full of the moon. Harder once I knew I was valued at $900 when I was 16. Some believe you knew better, and that's why you relied on me to carve out your parterre. With my only possession, I give one last drop of blood, no more to grieve. And this one is called Omission, for Martha, owner of Augustus at Rosedown Plantation. Nothing is changed. I am what I was. My hair spooled out behind me that dewy morning, my body folded next to the hedgerow, back then a flower, this garden, and me. I had visions of what we would be, fragrant, orderly, axial vistas inviting the visitor deep into my pleasure ground. Now I sit in a green iron chair, hair clipped and netted like last season's berry vines past their prime. I look beyond the conservatory, the summer houses of lattice and benches, empty of laughter and song, so long since Augustus laid in the japonicas with his knife and his birdsong notes, creating this shelter of merciful shade. Augustus made this place, one bud knife after the other, shovel dug in dirt, patterns laid with sticks and string. This land received his sweat and his song, answering him in acres of color and form. He heard those French travelers praise my living creation. Augustus watered and watched. Why should I disappoint them with the truth? Why tell them that this garden was born of my slave's imagination and his spine bent for 30 years to my will? Okay, I have time for one more, and this is called The Girls of Summer. There were 3 of us not yet tall as the crook in the oak across the gravel road where I toughened my soles all summer, walking nonchalant like nothing hurt me, let alone some puny rocks pocking my pink skin under tender from winter. There on that grassy hill we spun in circles until we fell into chlorophyll shoots, bodies pressed to the earth by a mysterious force we would chase in some form for years. We lay on our backs looking skyward at rabbit, horse, camel clouds, cumulus if you must, spinning, spinning, drunk on our self-propelled motion in a collective surrender to nature. We held on to each other on that Ohio hill, and it held us at the safe edge of danger, 3 girls grinning, one yanking the other up, staggering toward our next spin. Thank you.
Give it up for Sandra Sarr. And give it up for all the wordsmiths. We're now completed our first session of Word Crawl 2019. So please crawl with us to our next venue at the atrium behind Poop Hearts and Solo Violins right across the street. Thank you all for coming. Have a great day.